Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming. It's December 19th. We're here for our Friday afternoon discussion session. Myron, could you call the roll?
Yes, I can. Councilmember Buse,
Here.
Councilmember Patel,
Here.
Councilmember Fader,
Here.
Councilmember Humble,
Here.
Councilmember Waldman,
Here.
City Manager David Gibson,
Here.
Mayor McAndrew.
Here. And I know Councilmember York will be here a little bit later after there's a lot of elementary holiday concerts this afternoon. So I think the first item and we're going to talk about today is some lighting, some new lights in Clayton. So I'll invite our Matt Malik, our Public Works Director.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, we were back for round two. If you recall, last time we were here, we were getting an idea on some of the streetlight fixtures that we'll be installing for some street lighting projects we have throughout town, as well as restoration from the tornado, so that we could dive deeper into the selections that go with the poles for the standardization of those lights throughout the area. You'll see Rich is going to come provide some information here, but you'll see as we get into it, there's a multitude of pole options, and we provided some options that give you an idea of some cost ranges so that we can go even further and try to find something that fits. It just ended up being a lot more options, I think, than we anticipated. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rich Wilburn, our principal civil engineer, who's managing the lighting projects in White Elm Forest and High Point and DeMun and going through the selection process. He'll recap some of the previous information we covered, and then some of the new information on polls and costs.
Hey, Matt, just so we're clear, so are you looking for do you want us to potentially pick something, or are we narrowing it down, just giving you some direction, just so I'm clear on what you're looking
I think at this point, we were hoping to get a selection with all the different options we have here. It feels a little maybe unfair to ask you pick one. I think it's some direction from what we were finding. There's so many options. We got some cost range, but some direction on we like that, and then we could finalize it some more with the different manufacturers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and ultimately the reason for that is we don't have another meeting, as you know, until January 13th, so 4 weeks from now, and we want to get going on putting together that scope of work so we can bid the street light replacement in the city. So every week we can save on that is another week sooner that we've got lights back up in these areas. So.
As Matt said, I think I've stood up here in front of most of you guys before. I am Rich Wilburn, the principal civil engineer for the city. We are, as Matt presented to you last time, and as we mentioned a few minutes ago, we are starting to peel away the layers of this onion and get down into we're trying to keep you out of the weeds so that we're presenting you with some curated options, and you can give us some guidance as to which direction you'd like to see this process take forward. As you recall, last time, we kind of showed you where our existing streetlight concern areas are. We are currently working as part of the regular modernization project in the High Point, DeMun, White Elm Forest area. And then we also have the situation where from our tornado damage in May, where we have a lot of lights that are going to need to be replaced. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that when we're putting new lights in, we're working towards having a single light standard for the entire city as much as possible, at the very least, to come up with a pole standard so that if there is some variation in the luminaires, we can work with those. But if a pole gets knocked over or damaged and needs to be replaced, we want to be able to have those on hand to replace them or put the other fixtures back in, however that works out. But we're trying to get some consistency right now to, as Matt pointed out last time, what is very much running the gamut of all different design types and options here. So as you can see, and Matt mentioned last time again, we do have a wide variety of light fixtures, poles, pole materials, bases, essentially the wiring and the power systems and everything are all sort of standard, and they don't vary much between our choices there. But obviously there's a very wide variation and a wide availability of options for us when we start looking into these, both from manufacturers and from each manufacturer has dozens and dozens of styles and options as well. And just to kind of recap, Matt went through in more detail, but these are kind of the general things that we're looking at when we're evaluating these things for the future. You know, we want somebody to supply us who's going to be around for the whole time that it takes us to do this project. We want to look at all of the aesthetic options. And then from sustainability standpoint, we want to look at energy consumption. We want to look at dark sky friendly so that we're keeping all of the things that are important that we made important in the city in mind as we move forward. But what we're really looking for here is interchangeability, consistency, and just being able to stock this kind of material on hand. So as Matt presented last time, we presented two significant options. There was a third that we didn't follow up on because the general consensus that we got back was that it wasn't really something we wanted to look at. So this is the first option. I think the general feeling on this one was that this was an acceptable option. I think the second one that we'll look at here shortly was the preferred option. So we kind of ran a little farther down that, but we wanted to give you a little follow-up on this one as well. So the second one that we looked at was this, the Sternberg lighting system, and that comes from a whole family of lighting that goes all the way up from street lighting, Cobra head type lighting, all the way down to accent lighting on walls and bollards and things like that. So going back to the first option, the manufacturer here is Signify. You probably knew them better, maybe if you've heard of Philips before, but now their lighting branch is called Signify. They are a world leader in this field, good reputation. These options that we're looking at are all dark sky friendly. Again, Philips signifies everywhere. They've been around for pushing 130, 140 years. So we have good confidence in them and they're going to be there when we need them. That particular fixture that we looked at is called the Signify Town View. And it has more of that colonial lantern look. Those luminaires, depending on the exact features like the lenses and stuff, those range from $1,800 to about $2,000 just for the light part of the fixture itself. This particular manufacturer, they sell theirs actually all as a unit. So the pole and the base are all contiguous. They're all one piece. So you may be familiar with our streetlights downtown. They're poles bolted to the ground that have then a clamshell base that goes over those that allows us maintenance access and then gives it a more aesthetic look. This particular manufacturer, their pole options, as I said, are all built into a single piece. And so you see here, all of their options are the fluted poles, which we have in a lot of places around town. The standard 15-foot fluted pole will range from $2,750 to $3,000, and you can see the costs go up with each level of increased detail in the height of the bases and stuff. So when you take that previous cost, the $1,800 to $2,000 for the fixture, and a range of the poles that are available, you're looking at a total unit cost. And this is our little asterisk there. This is the hardware cost. As I mentioned before, the wires, the control system and everything is sort of a sunk cost. That's going to be the same no matter who we go with. So what we're really boiling it down to here is just picking the part that you see, the outside part, what looks nice, what works well, and we'll take it from there. So your total unit cost with the luminaire on this can range, if you were going to go with something like what's on the left, could be as low as $4,550 per pole. If you go with something as complicated as the one on the right, it could be as high as $6,500 per pole. So that gives you kind of an idea of not just the range of costs, but sort of the variability of options that we're trying to wade through here. Going back to the second option that you guys had looked at last time, this is the Sternberg E350. It's called the Euro. As you guys may or may not know, Sternberg manufactures our existing central business district streetlights, our streetscape lights, I should say. We have a history of working with them. They've been around for a long time. As we mentioned, is something that we're kind of interested in. belonging to a family of lights that is scalable. And we can put these in different places. You could put bollards in Shaw Park that might have lights on top, and they would match these lights that would be everywhere else in the city. They are dark sky friendly. Your poles and your bases in this case are separate and they're interchangeable. So you can kind of pick one and pick another and mix and match and put things together. So the luminaire itself in the standard size is about 2,100. So it's a little more expensive than the first one that we looked at. Your basic round poles, which go down to the ground and have just a round cover that goes over the base, those are $1,650. If you taper that pole, it'd be about 7 inches at the top, maybe 7 inches at the bottom, 5 at the top. Then you would have about $2,000 for that pole. If we added the fluting, which you can see the difference between the smooth pole and the fluting on that, that will push that up to about $2,350. Then a flared decorative base. These are actually kind of where a lot of the money on these gets spent. The actual cost that you see there, the $4,250, is for the one on the left there, which gives us a general range of $3,750 to $8,700. So again, there's a very wide number of options. And when we say that, we kind of mean that there are so many different specifics that we can choose from. So what we've tried to do is narrow it down to a few options and give you an idea of what the cost is going to be for not the basic, but sort of a more standard typical installation would be. Since we had a lot of feedback the last time that indicated that the Euro was a style that was popular and everybody seemed to agree that that was kind of the way to go, we wanted to look at other manufacturers other than just Sternberg and try to find something that was relatively similar. This company, NLS Lighting, have a model called the Del Mar. NLS is a newer entry into the market. They are American made, like all of our others are. They are based in California. And these are known, their company is more known for being competitive price points, like bringing that value level up a little bit, but still maintaining good quality. The poles and the bases, like Sternberg's, are separate and interchangeable. They are dark sky friendly. And again, the cost for a single luminaire unit of this kind is about $1,690. Again, we have multiple pole options. The round aluminum pole, $1,345, going all the way up to the fluted pole at $2,525. You can see the different shapes. That kind of gives you an idea of what we're talking about there. And again, decorative bases, the cost again is based on the one on the left. But there are, again, many options available to us. The total cost of that unit, the luminaire and the pole and the base, would run anywhere from $3,035-ish to about $7,350. So kind of what does all of this mean? There's obviously a very wide range of costs that are available here, and we want to put in the best possible product that we can. We want it to look nice. What we have to keep in mind is the scale of this investment. The estimated number of residential streetlight poles that will eventually be replaced in the city is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 950. That does not include parking lots, alleys, our parks, central business district, county routes, any of that. That's just really the residential poles that we're talking about. So a difference of $1,000 in that cost over the life of this project, each $1,000 more that we spend, we're talking about $1 million more to the project on that scale. And obviously this isn't something that we're going to be diving in and doing all in FY27 or something like that. This is going to be a multi-year project, and like everything else, the cost of materials and electronics and all the streetlight, all the things that go into a streetlight are going up. So those costs will increase in the future. And again, just to reiterate, what we're talking about here is just the material costs, not the wiring, not the control systems, none of that. This is basically just, you already have the base in the ground, you already have the power run to it. This is the price to bolt the pole down, put a base cover on it if you want to, and put your new luminaire up. So with that kind of wraps up what we wanted to present to you today at this stage. We'll be happy to, again, in the future, if we need to, we're going to be continuing to narrow this down to a few options based on hopefully the feedback that we get from you guys. And then we will turn around and get you our recommendation as to what we should move forward. So again, just to recap, there's the general options that we've curated so far and the range of prices. Basically, you're looking at that left line, because I don't think we're going to be probably looking at putting in something as complicated as what would push it to the far side of that. But as you can see, there are a lot of variables to this. We're trying to boil that down to as few options as possible. So I'll be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Yep. Rich, thanks for that presentation. Yeah, we'll just kind of go around. Susan, I don't know, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I do. A couple. So the actual infrastructure, the wiring will be
Mhm.
roughly the same no matter which
That's
option we
correct.
choose.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the desire for uniformity in the poles, does that include the pole and the base? That you want everything the same?
I suppose that's,
What usually comes down?
I think the pole is the important part when we talk about interchangeability. When somebody comes in and, we get a car that hits one, or if we get one that we locate later on that needs to be replaced because it's been damaged for whatever reason, or it started to degrade, there's a flaw in it or something, we'd like to be able to pull those poles off the shelf, replace the pole very quickly. If we can put that base back on again, great. If we have to get another one, we'll have some of those in the shop as well to replace those. But right now, we simply have to stock too many different replacements, or we have to wait and order the replacement parts. And sometimes it takes a long time for those lights to get back up again. So
Go ahead.
To add on to that, Rich wasn't here the last time we
Yeah.
presented it, but I think he did watch the video, but
Yeah.
the goal is to have the same fixture, same pole for that interoperability that he
Right.
mentioned and be able to grab and install.
For all the for the residential. And so the advantage of having the family of lights is extending beyond residential. Not that you can have a choice within residential areas.
Correct.
You keep saying the
Correct.
benefit of that is
yeah, when we talk about the family, we were talking about scaling that up. So it would go everything from
parking
a
lots.
new Cobra head down to 15-foot poles at residential areas. Again, could be bollard lighting, but everything looks the same. It's consistent about, and if one needs to be replaced, we'll have a dozen in the shop that we can bring out, put it in, and then take it from there. So
Okay, and the other, just to make sure I'm clear on this too. So 950 need to be replaced. Is that,
actually,
That's how many residential lights we have of this
Good
scale
question.
in neighborhood.
Yeah.
okay, that's when
Overhead.
everything is done,
Yeah.
it's 950.
Just as
Not-
we look at the residential.
not what
impact.
needs to be replaced now.
Okay,
Right.
That's not
okay,
the-
okay, and the quality and everything else of these are all comparable.
Consistent,
As
yeah.
far as the materials used and everything else, it's really, we're really just looking at a matter of style.
It's more aesthetics than anything.
Okay.
And those bases, because
Yeah.
we know from option 1 and 2 from last time we had some feedback. Option 3, it was a recommendation from our designers and suppliers. We understand they are newer. It did have a similar look to 2, so because there was some lower end cost savings, depending on where you go, we just wanted to throw it out there and get a little feedback, but we were trying to narrow things down, not broaden them, but we did want to include that one.
Okay, and then the dark sky, what was the term you used? Friendly or?
Friendly, yeah.
So
Compliant.
they're all compliant, so they're all pretty much the same range of dark sky
Yeah.
compliant.
They
And
offer
all
options
should
for
be
that.
available in both 2700 and 3000. The temperature, the color of the lighting.
Right, and they all shine down their targeted areas, okay.
Correct.
Rich, I'm sorry, and just to follow up, so the temperature for all these lights would be about 2,700 or 3,000?
700 or 3000, they're available in either. So
And that would be the temperature throughout the city?
we've looked at trying to get ones that were scaled or switchable. That's kind of a higher end feature and it can be more expensive. So we will continue to look into that. But at this point, we are looking at kind of picking one or the other. So we're
Yeah, 3000K is dark sky compliant. 3000K or lower is dark
Yeah.
sky compliant.
Got it, okay.
The switchable feature is sometimes rules those lights out from dark sky compliance. If you have the ability to change it higher,
then
even if you don't use it,
Yeah.
And the last thing, there was one more thing. I think I probably said that before. The last thing, when we heard this last time, there was a question with the, more modern lighting, that we may not need as many poles. If you're starting with a blank slate and spacing them, you might not need as many. Is that?
I would not characterize it, I guess, that way. With Cobra heads, they can be spaced out wider.
Okay, that was just a
Yeah,
couple.
it's the
Yeah.
height and the
Okay,
spread.
gotcha.
With
Thank you.
these lights, I expect it's going to have less output, more evenly distributed, but not
Yeah.
necessarily further spaced. In some cases, they might be slightly tighter spaced.
So it's pretty much the same of what we have.
Right.
Gotcha. Thank
Yeah.
you. Okay.
That difference, I think what Matt had talked about from my viewing of the review of the video was more along the lines of, if we decided to replace Cobra heads with these residential style, you would need a lot more of those to get the same even spacing of the light and the consistency.
Thanks. I have one question. I was curious, because you talked a little bit about like the single pole in the first option versus the bottom two having pole and base separate. I'm curious about whether that or any other aspect of these makes one of them easier to maintain or replace, or like what's
So the pole one piece versus two piece, it's really not. It is more about how you access it and you install it. I would defer and check with our operations staff before we make a final selection, but generally you're mounting these onto a concrete base, and it's just how you access those bolt holes and the door for the wiring. If you look at the far right picture, you can see that it's just molded into that
Oh,
base there, as opposed to
Being
removing a
able to take
base
it
where
off.
a door might be hidden underneath of it if it's a two-piece construction.
okay.
So I'm not aware of anything significant that
That it wouldn't actually make it like harder to maintain or replace. Okay. And then I was curious about whether, can you go back to the current state, all the different varieties we have? So, that light at Hillcrest is right in front of my house. And so I have this idea that like we have fluted poles, but we don't necessarily. We really do have a mix. And so.
Oh, yeah, throughout the city, right? You could.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about, because like the fluted's more expensive. And is it really worth it? Or what, how do I feel about that? And so I guess I would just say, given the scale of what we have to do and maintaining good like a strong operating budget, I would definitely encourage being on the low side. And I think if that means we don't have fluted poles, it's probably all right too.
And as
So
you
from my
discussed that,
perspective,
is fluted or the decorative base, is there one that weighs more than another?
yeah, I don't know. Great question. I don't like, I guess the point is, I don't believe that I have a strong feel about it. I think a base over a round pole might be better than a fluted pole with no base, but like, I
Yeah,
don't really like to play designer, so
yeah. And then when you look at this.
just
some of
wanted to be
these,
practical.
on the left there, you can have a base, a simple base, and a round pole or a fluted pole.
Mm.
And then the decorative base becomes sort of the, the aftermarket add-on. So
Right.
we pushes that cost up quite a bit. So.
One comment I did want to add, understanding here and what coming back to this slide was the benefit, I guess, to having the two-part system would be is if you decided that decorative base wasn't worth it in the future or gave you flexibility.
We could just stop using it or use it some places and not others. Yeah. Yeah.
It's something else that we'd have to maintain and replace.
Yeah, I mean, I think the point is even like looking at what we have now, there's a wide variety. I don't think it looks bad in the places where we just have a simple pole. And so, I think like from a position of fiscal responsibility, I'd encourage us to go that way.
Thank you. Gary?
So NLS looks attractive because on the low end, it's the lowest. But that of course raises, I guess, a couple of questions. One is, since this was not a company brought to us previously, and it kind of sounded like here's some folks who are trying to beat their competitors. Is that a fair characterization?
From what I've seen in the material, obviously they don't have the record or the long-standing track record, field performance of some of the other options. But I don't think that anything that we brought here, I think we've curated out anything that we had any significant concerns about.
So I was just wondering, so probably this is something you worry about 20 years from now or 25 years from now. You want to make sure your supplier didn't go out of business because then you
Very important.
can't replace the poles. So I guess the converse of that is, do you all get a better comfort feeling with Sternberg, knowing that you have a working relationship with Sternberg already?
I'd say that's a point taken. The longer historied companies, I think, there is a little bit more comfort level. But we understand these lights are expensive, so we wanted to be able to share this option that was recommended by others as well, even though we don't have experience with them, to let you know that on the more cost conscious side, here's what you'd be talking about as a delta. We could find another option that looks maybe very similar to that, but it just gives you an idea of a company that's maybe been around 10, 20 years and is a recommended option for the less expensive end.
All right, well, if we're only going questions right now, I'll save my preference to some other.
Well, I think if you have a preference.
Yeah, my preference would be Sternberg. I mean, I think aesthetically, I think that's a more attractive fixture. And I think we could stay on the low side with Sternberg and I think get some quality. I think the fact that we have a working relationship with them gives me some more comfort. And conversely, I just have a little bit of skepticism about NLS.
It does.
So to me, it is between option 2 and option 3. And I think right now I would lean towards Sternberg. And
Having the ability to not have that wide decorative base integral to the pole itself definitely gives us some flexibility with Sternberg and in NLS too. But the NLS is, it's not that NLS isn't good. It's that, what I'm getting from you, I think, is that we have a working relationship with Sternberg and we have a longer history with that company. I think that's a fair point.
thanks.
Member Hummel.
I'm just a couple of questions. So first one is, in general, can you give me at least a range on how long these lights are likely to last, these poles? Is this like a 40-year decision, 50-year, 20-year? Any idea?
So Sternberg has lights in our downtown area. What we're seeing there, because of their location and the high exposure to salt, is about 30 years. When you get into residential areas, they don't have the same exposure. So we've got some poles that have been out there, since the 80s, and they're fine. So I would anticipate we're looking at a 50-year life in these areas where they're not getting that direct harsh environment, salt, and impact. We do have things that happen, whether it be, freeze cars, different things. Obviously, you can't predict, but I would anticipate, close to that 50-year life.
So given that, so that what I'm getting at there is there's the long run cost versus the upfront cost. There's a combination. So I'm concerned about things, or would like to know things like, is there a significant difference in installing these poles from one manufacturer to another, the choices? Or, for example, one is a little more complicated, the other requires more man hours. So that would be, one thing to look at. Another would be, you mentioned the salt. So is there a track record that these manufacturers can somehow share to give us a better idea of, like, is there one that is any meaningfully better than another for life cycle, how long they'll last in our environment, in our climate, how we use them?
One thing that you're seeing now is there's been a big change in materials from when we started the Streetscape project in the 90s. We put a lot of steel poles in, and those are a lot of the ones that we're finding are reaching the end of their service life. And now pretty much everything that we're putting in, if it's metal, it's going to be aluminum. So it's going to have a much longer service life, we expect. Obviously, when you put those in, you don't know what it's going to be 50 years from now. But we're not recommending at this time or moving forward with similar material to what we started with in the Streetscape. For that matter, all the new Streetscape poles that we're putting up now are all
Okay. And then, just, I don't know even what else to ask in terms of, what could go wrong kind of a thing, but like, is there any one pole that withstands wind better than another? Or, depending on where we locate them, is there a likelihood that, lawnmowers are going to bang against it and over a time period, it's going to fall down or be damaged? All I'm trying to get at is as we make the decision, if there is some other meaningful measure that can talk about the long run cost of these poles, if you can present that as part of the package, that would be helpful.
Real briefly on when you talk wind loading and things like that, there are design standards for those that these poles would all meet for our region. There's different wind factors throughout the country. You'll get something with each pole you order that has a load rating that it can handle for things attached to it, and those will all be designed to meet that. The manufacturers could have different finishing practices, but they're all going to be aluminum and some kind of protection. But yeah, we can look at that information.
If they're all pretty much, no, they're all the same, and now it just comes down to design, that's fine, but I just want to make sure that we've at least looked at that, so.
I think the finish is the thing where you could get some difference. The ease in installation and those other factors, I think, are pretty universal.
Okay. So other than that, I kind of like the Sternberg option because of the family nature of it and the consistency that we would see throughout the community, so.
Yeah, I think that the family component of these fixtures is important. I know that, you had said in option 2 that you had the Cobra feature, but would we be switching those out with,
That's not.
it would never happen. Okay.
Never happen.
Yeah.
Just as part of our design and what we're calculating here is just putting back in kind.
Okay. So then like, for example, in the demo neighborhood where they have like the 2 heads, would those also be replaced with 2 heads, or we're just going to go
Yes,
one?
I'm sorry.
No, I was saying, are we just going to go with one light throughout all the residential?
Yeah, as part of that project on Des Moines Avenue, a lot of that system's actually in good shape.
Okay.
It's a little bit newer. So we did have it, we showed it last time, but we just didn't come back to this time because it really didn't need a decision. The retrofit for the LED to go into those lights, those would stay in generally the same format as they're in now.
Okay. So these light fixtures would not be put in, okay.
I would consider that streetscape similar to a downtown streetscape, just in Des Moines.
Okay. And then as far as like warranties for these light fixtures or these families, is there one that's better than the other or anything like that?
I don't have that information offhand. I know they all come with a form of warranty that would be limited to some degree because of the environment you might install it in, but we can get that information.
I just know if one, one's 20 years, one's 5 years or something like that, because that might.
They'll mostly be consistent, but there may be some minor variation. But they're willing to.
Okay.
Good question.
Okay.
Yeah.
And not to completely disagree with Councilmember Patel, I do think a little bit of a design feature on these is important. And I'm not saying like go all the way to the $8,700 per fixture, but when we're putting these throughout the entire city, I do think our city's not like a modern minimalist type of architecture, especially in the residential areas. So I do think a little detail, whether it's with the base or the fluted poles, will go a long way. So.
So of the 3 options, like for instance, we have up here, is there anything that stands out, or is it as long as we have something that's decorative that provides some kind of anchor, mimics what we have around town?
Right. So,
Effective.
so I just think like the round pole is not good at all. I like the fluted pole, and I do, if it's not too cost prohibitive, I do think we should consider a base of some sort. When you're walking down these streets, your eye level is not going to go all the way up, so you're kind of looking at the base of things. And so I do think a little attention to design is important, so.
And part of what we wanted to convey today is sort of the big scale cost of those little decisions. When you say, oh, it's 1,600 or 2,350. When you multiply that by 950, then it becomes a much bigger option. So
right.
there is such a range, as we kind of showed in that one slide, there's such a range of these that we can do something without going all the way to 8,700.
Right, is which we don't want to do that for sure. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think I actually like option 3. I think I like the simplicity of it. I like the top. I know it's a little bit less expensive. So I'm kind of curious if you added a fluted pole or some sort of decorative base, maybe it would kind of even out with, option 2. Yeah. I mean, my only concern with 3 is, I think Gary makes a good point, like in others who have said that, that history of the relationship option, that company's been around a lot longer. This company, I think you guys said was only around for 20 years. So, people have already mentioned that, but I actually do like option 3. And I mean, and I think like at least going forward, Jeff, I know that you haven't really heard the conversation very much, but we have these 3 options and so I don't know. I mean, I think it sounds like a lot of people do like option 2. Will you how will you guys evaluate going forward? I
I
mean,
think one question I would like to ask is if we look at some of these base options, is there things, we tried to throw in there things we thought matched the existing aesthetic throughout the neighborhoods. Is there anything that's just like, that's a no, I don't like that style, or that's a yes? We would get more information on that manufacturer and make sure we fall within this range, medium into the range. That would be helpful to know if there's guidance on that look.
I mean, I think we all certainly want to fall in the mid to lower range, given
Okay.
how costly this is. I think everybody would probably agree with that. I mean, I don't dislike any of those bases. I think it probably, again, comes down to cost and trying to figure out if there's like a mid to lower cost that we can, again, have a little bit of decoration at the bottom or a decorative pole. Again, as Becky said, I don't like to be the designer either. Councilmember Waldman is is probably the designer we all want to rely on in here, but I don't know if anybody else has any strong feelings on any of those polls. I don't, but.
To add to that for a reference point, if we were to place one of those existing poles out there today, you might average $5,500 to $6,000. So we're not talking about things jumping up significantly from where we are in replacements now
I've got
with decorative poles.
2 random thoughts,
Yeah.
not having sat through it, but having stared at the ones in my yard. I find that some of them will change colors based upon how much the sprinklers of your yard will spray them. So I want to be thoughtful about little things like that. Like, how hard is it going to be to trim around it? Like all those practical questions that I think don't outweigh the cost. But so soon as you guys are thinking through it, like, is this going to make it hard to trim the yard? When the sprinklers hit, is it going to change colors over time compared to the stuff on top? Like some of the cement ones, you can clearly drive by, you can see the difference. Those sort of aesthetic things, just as you guys are thinking through it, like all I ask is don't lose sight of some of those practical pieces. That again, doesn't outweigh the cost for me either, but to the extent all else is equal, just something to think about.
I'd only ask questions. I'll tell you what I'm thinking about this. You all curated this very well. I think they all look great. And I would opt for the option 3 because of the cost, because to me, they all look very similar. And if you think that the quality and the maintenance and everything else is equivalent, that's fine. But they, again, any one of them I think fits our need, and some type of base, unfortunately, on the less expensive side is probably what fits our neighborhood better versus the starker pole. So.
Yeah, what I'm kind of hearing, what I'm thinking we'll do is go back and some decorative base, but mid-range to lower end, so we can refine this more, because number 3 might not be the cheapest once you do that. So I just want to.
And number 3 does not have a family of lights, is that right?
It has some options, but not as much as number 2.
If you would tell us if that family is sufficient for what you would want in that or not.
Right.
Yeah, I trust you all. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I would also on these bases, because I think there are probably height differences that we can't really tell from these pictures. So that might be helpful, just like the scale of them.
Yeah, you're probably talking from a foot to 2.5 to 3 foot. I think that's the scale there. The right side is more close to that 2.5 foot.
Yeah, so just like dimensions might be helpful with that.
Yeah, I think some of the bases on the left side on both of those, they were only 17 or 18 inches high. Really is more of a variation at the base that then very quickly kind of tapers in.
It would be nice at some point if we could actually see them more than just on this. Like if there's a way that we could get some samples to at least look at them. If you guys narrow it down enough, and I don't want to be designing it, but it would be nice to be able to see what they're going to look like before we sink the kind of money in it.
See if they can provide us with a few select options. Narrow it down.
And I also want to recognize too, because I don't want to micromanage this decision either. And I want to make sure that we get stuff ordered so people get lights next fall, so I want to make sure that we're moving quick enough so that we can
Yeah, that is.
get people some lights. Yeah. So I recognizing that too. So,
So we'll talk about White Island a little bit, and this will impact that project timing as well. So we've got areas that are dark, like I said, and we need to get those out to bid just as soon as we can. So what we'll do is over the next few weeks here is we're going to keep developing the overall scope. This is kind of that remaining question. We figured design would be that last remaining piece. We're going to narrow this down to like A or B. And if we can get a sample in hand for you all to take a look at, I think we have enough direction at this point to narrow it down to a choice A, choice B, and we'll go ahead and get it done the first meeting in January. That way we can get this thing going and out to bid.
One thought, wanting to see them, do any of our neighboring areas have these lights?
Don't recall.
Drive by would be easier than lugging it in here.
We could.
Okay.
I don't,
No.
maybe just a picture. I don't think, but it's just a picture. Yeah. Perfect.
Decision. So the idea if we can see it, given the timeline,
Yeah.
nice, but.
Right. Okay.
And if you have as you've done all the analysis, or you will have done, if it seems like there's an apparent obvious choice to you aside from design, it would be great to hear your recommendations as to, here's why we would prefer this one, but we're willing to go with either one.
Yeah, I think we've got some guidance here. No big red flags to avoid and some general direction. We'll pick those, as David mentioned, A and B with those
Hopefully
considerations in mind.
we've filtered the red flags out already. So
Right. Yeah.
we don't want to come up, we're not going to
No,
come up
you're-
here and put something on that screen that.
Right. That doesn't have, yeah. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. Perfect. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Rick, do you want to come up and ask a quick question?
Aftermarket for salvage value for all the 900 lights you're going to take out. I recall at one point the city was buying equipment on eBay to keep the ice rink open. Is there a market for used?
For anybody watching remotely, there was a question from the floor about the ability to perhaps sell the existing streetlights aftermarket on one of the government sites or even as scrap. So what's the return on the existing equipment?
Yeah, recent scrap values have not been great, but that's what we do utilize, recycle and scrap right now. Usually when poles are being removed, it's not because they're still in good working condition. These projects, something will get hit or it's determined that it's close to failure and we'll be removing it. Now, when we go through and do wide scale removals on subdivisions, you might have a few that are reusable. I just don't know that we're going to have enough yet to say, hey, we've got a sellable lot that another city or somebody would want to use. I'd say more than likely it's going to be scrap material, but we do utilize government auction websites for disposal of surplus goods when we feel that it's relevant.
Thanks, Matt. Okay, I think just moving on to our next agenda item, we're going to talk about the new project in Shaw Park.
Thank you. I just wanted to really come up quickly and just do a quick introduction of our team before Aneshka here is going to do our presentation. I'm Neil Eisenberger. I'm a principal and senior landscape architect, and I serve as a project manager with Lamar Johnson Collaborative. We also have members of the design team here today. Aneshka Bosheva will be speaking, Chip Crawford from Trivers, our architects, Neil Chase, Maggie Hayden, and we have Oliver Wright, one of our team members as well. And Colette Krashelski will be here at the end going over budget and next steps for this project. But again, just thank you. We're really excited to share this with you today. We wrapped up schematic design just before Thanksgiving. We're beginning design development. What that really means is that we're still at a phase where feedback is super important and nothing's locked in. We've had great feedback from the steering committee that we've met with several times. So again, thank you for having us. And with that, I'm gonna let Aneshka start the presentation.
Thank you so much. I want to make this full screen, unless you guys see it full screen on your, there we go. So today just we'll do a quick overview of sort of the previous plans and all the work that has been done before we started. We'll do a quick landscape overall design, then we'll have architecture come up and talk about the building design. And then we'll get into the fun minutia of things with hardscape, softscape, ice rink and all of that fun stuff. And then a quick budget update and next steps. So, anytime we start a project, we really want to talk and acknowledge all the hard work that has gone on beforehand. And you guys did that livable community plan and all the engagement that was done. And there are 4 goals that stood out to us from that plan. The first one was to leverage public spaces for gathering and connection. So emphasizing flexible year-round use. So that's something that we made sure to incorporate into this park. The second was improving safe, accessible walking and biking infrastructure. Again, you'll see that in the design. Promoting sustainability and equity in the public spaces. So you'll see some of the decisions about the materials that we've chosen that are reflected through that. And then reinforcing Clayton's role as a regional and recreational hub. And I think the programming that was chosen for the park really reflects that. Just an overview of just a recap of some of the survey results, right? So residents saw gaps in diversity and recreation opportunities in Clayton. So we made sure that the programming for this park is diverse. And also the other kind of thing that we saw was that there wasn't enough cultural events, environmental education, and adult-centered programs. So you'll see that all the programming in this new design reflects that. Another recap, you have gone through, you had 5 different concepts in the past. And, we also have been working really hard with the steering committee. It's actually been a really great process on developing kind of that new design. And we've come up with what you see on the screen right now, which I think is a great balance between more sort of like symmetrical and formal, but also kind of design language with having some organic shapes and bringing in a little bit of the play. So I can walk through a little bit of this design. I know a lot of people in the room have seen it already, so I'm really sorry for boring those of you that have seen it like 6 times already. But so we'll start at the north side. So we have the drop off on the northeast end. We're expanding that actually to make sure that there's capacity for larger events. And then this north end is bookended by a new concession building, which our architect team will talk about. And we'll have a lovely beer garden up here at the top, which is right now that existing sculpture garden. The beer garden will be able to be closed down for private events. It'll be a revenue generator. And we're also talking about seasonality and how it could be used sort of all year round. Next is this band shelled shade structure, or stage. It's going to face both the beer garden. It'll be kind of double facing, so facing both the beer garden and that large event lawn or seasonal ice rink down here. So that's kind of the main focal point of the large space. And then you have the large event lawn. And then flanking that lawn on the sides, you have these kind of smaller VIP areas, which will have a shade structure, some fire pits, some really nice seating. On this side, we'll have an area for food trucks. And then down here, some flexibility. So if you have a large event, you can have, we always think about introverts, extroverts, families, people that are coming in large groups, small groups. So if you want to, you kind of have 2 different types of spaces. Down here, you can have families. If there's a big event going on, they can have a sort of quieter time down here. And then a big thing that we heard was expanding the pickleball courts from 4 to 6. And so we figured out a way to do that on the east side here. Yeah, so that's the plan. I forgot to say, if you guys have any questions, please interrupt me. I sort of hate talking. So if you want to talk, that's great.
Say something really quickly, if you could go back, just for general orientation for anybody that hasn't seen this before. The area where you see the beer garden, that's the current Century Garden that exists between Shaw Park Pool and the former ice rink site. This is Brentwood Boulevard over here on the east. Here's Bonham, the intersection with Bonham. So that is an existing drop off. And as she mentioned, it would be expanded. This is the existing tennis court 10, we call it. So there's kind of, you'll see in a minute, there's really two elevations there, but this kind of raised section that has 4 pickleball courts, that's the existing tennis court 10 being converted. And then you have the tennis courts just to the south of this site. So just wanted to give that overview really quickly.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I have a question.
Yep.
What is the, what is the line dividing the pickleball courts? Is that a road or
Right?
you've got 4 pickleball courts and then you've
Yes,
got
so currently the
stairs because of the elevation. Okay.
yeah, it's
got it.
it's because the elevation and we had an option where we had it all at the same elevation. But I think going through the SD set and trying to save a little bit, trying to find ways where we can be more environmentally sustainable and save some money. We think that sort of having them at 2 different levels will be, just because of the current grading, will be the best way to do that.
Okay, and then historically, I've been around too long, there was a lot of objection to getting rid of that tennis court. Has that kind of subsided? Have there been counts on need, or are we comfortable not having it anymore?
I mean, I think the steering committee talked about it. I think we certainly talked, we really wanted to capture that flat space over there, and that was basically taking over that court. I think also the pickleball courts are so well used that because there was a time where there was only 4, expanding it to 6, I think was something we thought was important. But yes,
Was
I
a
think,
priority.
yeah, I think being able to do everything, I mean, the space is not very large. So I think being able to do everything we wanted to do, and yes, having to sacrifice that court where you can do the single play, you can stand there, I mean, that's what people primarily use it for. If they're by themselves, they hit balls against like a rebounder. So it's losing that.
Right, and it would not, it could be done to put that rebound wall somewhere else in here. It's just a wall on existing fence or something. So, okay,
Yeah, we
thanks.
can add that.
I would just say anecdotally in Ward 3, just based on the coffees in the last couple of years when we've talked about what would basically be the site, we've always talked about the fact that that particular court would not be part of the plan. And I've never heard any objections. Now, that doesn't mean that's very scientific, but at least to the extent that we've talked to people about the plan, I've never heard any objections to replacing it with pickleball, which seems to be very popular these days.
So are we going in order? I don't want to.
No, I mean, go ahead. Yeah.
What, you may be getting this, but capacity numbers on the lawn? Because we're
Yeah,
getting
I
to
think we're
that.
gonna
Okay.
get that
Um, then I'll save the follow-up question that till later. Like on the pickleball courts, I'm still not 100% sure pickleball is not just a fad. I'm debating this. So I'm thinking about what else that could be used for and how easy it would be to convert it from pickleball to something else and the way you guys have envisioned it.
Great question. I have not played pickleball as well, but I think that so since that the 4 courts are right now tennis courts, it's just striped differently for pickleball, so you can always convert that back to tennis courts. And yeah, the 2, so then you would keep the 2 smaller pickleball courts there, and I'm sure that could be converted into
Okay.
smaller. I mean, yeah, maybe if you have like
Basketball hoops.
Yeah. And I guess the only other question I've got, and it's partly for you and maybe it's partly, Gary and others that were involved, like if how much are we changing the Century Garden to this beer garden, and what's going to be left and what isn't? Because I know a lot of money and a lot of thought went into that on the Clayton Century Foundation to kind of help that. So I want to be thoughtful as to what we're getting rid of after the amount of time and energy and frankly money that went in to do it.
So we will be keeping, there's some of the circulation we're keeping, so some of that concrete on the north side, and I think the south side. You have existing, I think there's like 6 magnolia trees that we're hoping to redistribute throughout the site. And then there's that like wonderful sculpture, but instead of having it in the center, we're gonna move it to the entrance right here, put it on a smaller pedestal so it's a little bit more accessible, and it kind of frames the entrance to that space. So keeping a lot of the same things, even like in terms of feel, that right now that you have trees and like that tree canopy, we're hoping to kind of keep that feel. We're definitely keeping all the trees on the north side that are going to provide shade. So I think we're keeping a lot of the infrastructure that's there and just sort of updating some of the things that need maintenance. And yeah.
Thank you.
And I would say too, and Tony can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that the Century Garden is very well used. I mean, it's just not a place where people go and gather. I mean, it looks nice, but you don't often see people
It doesn't
hanging
get
out there.
circulation.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think being able to use the space in a way that you can make it, attractive to people, vibrant, actually get people to go there and sit, is the idea. Because it's
Oh.
really just not being, yeah.
And I'm fully supportive of that. I was asking the question for those who aren't here, who spent the time and energy to be there. Like
Yeah.
if the whole thing was gutted, for example, I could see some people being like, we just did this 20 years ago or whatever. What are we doing?
Right.
So I wanted at least to ask. So thank you. It sounds like it's a workable plan to
Yeah,
keep the guts of what people spent time and envision, but also trying to rework it for what we're trying to do.
100%.
Done.
We're trying to make sure that we're not overspending money where we don't need to, and so kind of keep it.
Can you confirm if your mic is on? Like, is the light green or red?
It's green. I'll just put it.
That would help.
Sorry.
Thank you. No, you're soft spoken.
Good.
Thank you very much.
This may be premature, my question, or perhaps you're going to discuss it later, but I'm curious, have we also thought about programming in terms of looking at this design? When I glance at it, I see, I can see special events, but I'm wondering, what about just everyday activities? How would this be used? Have we thought about that? Just to help me bring it to life in terms of what you're thinking.
Yes. Why don't I go through some of these other slides, and then I do have a slide about programming a little bit later on. So this is just kind of bubbles over the plan, just for an understanding. Beer garden at the top, building, stage, flexible green space, the pickleball courts, food court, trucks. We're keeping that vehicular path going straight through. That was something that we discussed and wanted to manage, or wanted to keep the access through here. So we also have some renderings of the kind of aerial views of the site plan. So you can see that's the entrance. This is the sculpture that we were talking about. Really nice, kind of inviting entrance both to the beer garden and down to this larger green area. This is the view from pickleball courts. We're also looking at lighting, and that's something that we'll be talking about in our future steering committee meetings, but how the lighting affects some of the neighborhoods in these residential buildings.
Before you go to another slide, just because I know this has come up frequently, just so everybody on the council understands, where the drop-off area starts, the hope is still to kind of reorient that intersection there so that the pedestrian walkway across Brentwood is shorter. Is that still?
Yeah, we actually just got some drawings from our civil engineer. We're looking at keeping kind of that north end where it is and then pushing it down. So here, I can go back to here. So I think the renderings right now show it centered, but I think what we're going to end up doing, so we're not having to reconstruct the entire intersection, is keeping that north entrance and then pushing the whole thing, just expanding it to get enough cars down here.
Okay.
And they're looking at how that works with the lights and
Okay.
yeah.
Because it is confusing, yeah, like that light there, whether you can turn left, so I just want to make sure that we're still considering that and thinking about that, because that, is something we often hear, people having to race across the street in order to get to the pool and, just being thoughtful. I understand, I don't want to change the whole intersection because that would blow our budget, but just thinking about how we're doing.
How people cross. And also, we want to, I think what we've been talking about as part of this project is that entrance to, or kind of including the entrance to the pool and the aquatic center, and making sure that it sort of connects with this up north. So right now we don't have the survey for that area, so we're just kind of working through those details. We're in SD, but that is another area we're thinking about including.
So is this the time to ask about that access along? Okay.
mean,
Because if I look at the 4 goals and it's talking about, a gathering, making it accessible, equitable, and regional, we're going to have, ideally, we'll have more people coming than
Yes.
are currently there. And I think many of us talked with Ben, that the idea, it's a very difficult access point. We've got Brentwood cutting us off from most of Clayton. It's busy roads all around it. And even if we don't have the budget to do it now, I don't want to preclude, or maybe we may not want to preclude refiguring that in the future, whether it be even by slowing down traffic, by putting parking along there, additional parking, because, right now there will be a shortage of parking if we do this, unless we're parking on the other side and then having to cross Brentwood. So I don't know if there are some traffic studies that could be done, again, just so we don't preclude making this more, having that welcoming frontage to this in the future as we go forward with this.
Yeah, we can look at that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, there's just been thoughts about how we can, it'd be great to have a wider sidewalk as you move closer to Forest Park Parkway and, that would be great. And that, I think it's thinking about, how we can make things more inviting, a nice buffer into the park future. So making sure that we're not doing things that would preclude better improvements later on.
And also bicycles, I assume there's somewhere for bicycles to be.
Parking for bicycles. Yes.
And,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. Again, just SD stage. So we haven't
Right, I wasn't
modeled
quite sure when
all
to
the,
bring up the,
yeah.
okay.
The only other question I've got, and it's very basic, just for my own thing. So is it designed to be hardscape in the front, grass in the back? Is that what that gray spot is?
Yeah, so and we've done a couple amphitheaters like this, or like, when you have a stage, even though we're hoping that or like the lawn would be accessible, usually if you have people in wheelchairs, or you want to put down chairs or things like that, or it's also an area that's probably going to be the most heavily used, you want to put down a sort of more durable material.
That makes a lot of sense. I
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I was understanding what it was.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
think it's a fundraising opportunity too, that we've talked about, like the brick
No,
there.
And I wouldn't even thought about, but it makes a lot of sense in terms of disabilities and other folks that don't want to be going through the grass. And
Talked about
and
mosh pits.
Mhm.
if we want to have a mosh pit, different conversation, but yes.
I'm sorry, can I ask one more thing?
Of course, go ahead. Yep.
Basketball, there's been a lot of demand. It's a different demographic, a different interest. What was the conversations about having basketball courts somewhere?
I mean, we definitely talked about it. It was something that came up. I think it was being afraid of trying to put too much in one site. I think there was concern about, a little bit, maybe it kind of came down to one or the other, like, did we want to make this a flexible event space, or did we want to kind of pack it full of like a sporting area, because I think it was clear from our community, at least the engagement we did as part of the Livable Communities Plan, that people want to see some pickleball. So, but then trying to think about where we would put other courts became more difficult. So I think it was a little bit of picking and choosing, but then also thinking about where potentially basketball could go in other areas of the park or in other parks. I mean, it certainly came up, but I think there was a concern about putting too much in a space that is really not that large.
Okay, I appreciate that, and I understand that. And as long as we don't lose that, because as I recall, there was quite a bit of interest in having that in one of our parks. So even if it's not in this space,
Mhm.
then we can figure that out.
For sure.
Okay.
Yep.
And I will say we had the park board meeting, was it 2 weeks ago? And you have on that board, you also have I think 2 or 3 kind of are they members of the like youth
High school.
advisory, students, and they seem pretty excited about this and like the different uses that, because what we find in research in terms of parks is that you have parks for there's programming for kids, and there's programming sort of for seniors or adults, for families, but there's also always the missing piece is always teenagers. And so I will say they seem pretty excited. So
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Councilmember Patel, do you have any questions or at least right now?
Yeah, I don't, I'm not sure. I always like to give you a chance to present what you have to present.
Yeah,
before I
there's
ask
more.
Too many questions, so.
and I will say, so this is just an overview of the landscape, and I'll have the architecture team come up, and then I will get into the really nitty-gritty details of the landscape and the materials, and we'll go over the hardscape plan and things like that. I know there was a question about the programming for that large lawn, and so we thought about, you can see some of these up here. You could do outdoor movies, you could do yoga, kind of yard games, picnics on food truck days. So there's a lot of different things, and they're both kind of family oriented and large group oriented or sort of teenage oriented things that you could do on that flexible lawn. I don't know if that answers your question.
That's helpful.
Yes, that's helpful. What I was also wondering on the rendering though was, so some of it's addressed like food trucks and why you have them, where you have them, or the stage. So I get that. But there were some, I think you called them VIP areas or sitting areas. I'm just more trying to see if you've contemplated why, other than that they might look appealing, what's their purpose? How do they interact with this?
Yes. Yeah. I'll share that with you I'll let Neil present architecture because I feel like.
Hi, everyone. My name is Neil Chase, architect with Trivers here in St. Louis, part of the design team. There we go. Thank you. So I'll give you a brief overview, and then we'll get into a few details. There's a handful of slides here. So first of all, talking about the building location. In early conversations, we found that the northeast corner was a good spot for the building location, not only to support all of to support the events happening within the park. So we have pickleball and the event lawn to the south, but also to be a destination as you're approaching the park from downtown Clayton, from Bonham. So the building is here to support, but also to be a new destination within the park. Looking at inspiration for the design of the building and the materials, we looked to Chapman Plaza and Enterprise Pavilion. So we wanted to look at materials and inspiration of something that is in the park already. So lots of natural materials, a lot of wood, soft stone, soft appearing stone, metal, things that are found in nature and pleasant to be around. Looking at proposed materials, taking cues from those two buildings and experiences on the park, and proposing a stone for the building, which is not only beautiful and inviting, but also so very durable. And then aspects of the building being wood, which is also inviting and natural, and then metal in a supporting role. So the materials are all timeless, durable, they're of the park and the place, and natural and welcoming. So getting into the floor plan of the building, it's a simple shape. There's really four main programs. We have food and beverage. So that would be a place for park goers to come and get a drink, something to eat, and a kitchen to support that. It would not be a full service kitchen, but more of a warming kitchen. The design team did a lot of research and went on a couple of field trips and looking at the Rockwell Beer Garden at Francis Park as a good precedent. So if you haven't been there, they serve pizza and beer and I think sandwiches. So they're doing that all in a warming style kitchen. There's no commercial hood. There is a 3-compartment sink and a grease trap to support that. So not a full kitchen, but more of a warming kitchen. And that's in kind of the upper right area. We have support spaces like a freezer walk-in cooler area, and then a mechanical space on the left. And then finally, the other support function of the building is the restrooms. Those are accessed here on the lower left. We're currently showing gender-neutral restrooms. We feel that that's appropriate for a pavilion building like in this area in Clayton for a lot of reasons. It's about cost neutral on number of fixtures if you were to have two separate restrooms. But it has a lot of positives for us. We feel that it's safer for most, if not all, users. If you think about families, situations where they're coming and going, it gives them a lot more flexibility and equity in use there. It also allows for more, I guess it opens up the spaces, and we imagine that if there's a large event, there's going to be a lot of demand on the restroom. And hopefully with this arrangement, folks can get in and out a lot quicker. Okay, yes.
Well, a couple of things. So before you move on, so on the kitchen, by not having to be a full service kitchen, what are we losing on that? Because like, you know, part of this is right. You want to make sure the kitchen's flexible enough for things you can't think of. So by not having the range, what are we, like what types of food are we now losing the ability to be able to produce? You talk about Rockwell being pizza and being beer and sandwiches, but are we losing the ability to do burgers and hot dogs and fried, you know, deep fryer of whatever? Like, are we losing
Correct.
all of that?
Yes. Yes. Without the commercial hood, you would not have that ability.
And is there a reason other than cost we didn't put a commercial hood in there?
I think cost is a main driver. And I also think David, maybe you can speak more to that, just the relationship with the vendor.
The conversations we've had, cost is the driver.
Okay.
It's a substantial cost to put that in. In the end, if we decide not to make that improvement ourselves, and that's something that a vendor wants to put in, you know, that's a substantial cost that they would have to incur in order to do that. We see this with spaces in downtown Clayton all the time that may not have commercial kitchens in them. We wonder, why can't we get a small cafe or something? It's always the kitchen and the hood system that becomes the obstacle. You know, if a vendor, when we put this out, if a vendor wants to not have some sort of warming feature in there and wants to do a full kitchen, then we can talk about doing that. And if they want to do it at their expense, great. But for us to incur that expense up front, not knowing who the vendor will be, we felt like that was too much for our budget to handle.
Just real quick, does Shaw Park Pool have one in there?
I believe it does. Yes.
Do they do have a hood in there?
Yeah, because there's all types of food, burgers.
Yeah, that's
it's-
okay.
Yeah, there's actual cooking in there.
So how much money are we talking about? Like an actual cost of a hood? Like, are we talking 500 grand, 3 million? Like, what's the, I'm trying to weigh it off of the
3 million.
flexibility we're losing here.
I could get back with some hard numbers. I mean, it's definitely six figures for just upfront cost.
Okay.
And it takes up quite a bit of space as well. And then you have the need for a mechanical system. So you have to bring in fresh air, and then you have to get that out, have ducted return. So you'd have a larger dedicated air handling unit that goes along with it.
Okay.
So
And I
that
get-
raises- sorry.
I was going to change. I was going to ask a different question. So go ahead if you're.
Oh, the issue, if it could even be done if a vendor wanted to do it, if it's going to take more of a footprint.
And anything's possible with enough money. We've seen that play out too.
Okay, because I guess the concern is that some of the problems with getting retail and food downtown is that the space that's supposed to be retail doesn't have the full kitchen, and so they can't get a tenant. Now, I'm certainly hopeful that we get somebody in here who's generating some revenue to help offset the costs. And so it's that question of the upfront costs versus attracting somebody who's going to start giving us an income
Yeah.
stream.
Well, and I guess, I mean, and I can just report what we've talked about at the committee, I think we really tried to really think about, people rave about the experience. And Francis Park is a great example, you know, and you can go to restaurants throughout the city of Clayton and get an elaborate dinner experience. I mean, we're talking about having dinner in a beer garden or a snack or something that's simple, you know, so if you really want to go have a burger, go to 5-star. If you really want to have a sit-down meal, we have a lot of restaurants. So I think the idea with this, and I'm not arguing, I guess, one way or another, but the idea is to try to model the experience because Francis Park has been so successful. So, I mean, I know you've already said it, Neil, but I know all of you went there and actually talked to the concession, you know, person there who said, what has worked here? What hasn't worked here? What would you like that you don't have here? And that's what I think we're getting things that he has already reported saying, oh, that would be more helpful if we had that. So
Sounds
that's
great. Okay, thanks.
And I guess the only other thought while we're on it before you move is while I understand the idea of single sex bathrooms, I'm going to have to think about that. And I think as a community, I'm not sure if we would be all ready for that. I don't know. I'm just saying, I think we need to be thoughtful on how we proceed with that piece, even if some of the logic may make sense otherwise. So
I would just share, we talked about this at Parks and Rec, which is a different group than the steering committee. And I think it's something that I feel like I'm seeing more and more at places I go to. And one of the things are you familiar, like, have you been to one that you know of?
it's been a while, but yes.
So the
I've-
idea of it is like the stall itself where you go to the bathroom has like where the toilet is full floor to ceiling. You're completely inside it.
White
So,
on
like,
some, for
You
example, like
can't
white on.
even like, see under the wall or anything like that. So I think like I think it's a great way to like ensure access and not get into genders. Like people actually talked a lot about how it helps like parents with children of another gender than them, like that it makes it easier for them to go to the restroom together and feel safe doing it. So
Does it also help your fixture count for like these larger?
It'd be about the same. I think
Okay.
we would propose, because it's tough on a project like this. Obviously, we're not going to have enough restrooms per count. Like if you have a large concert,
Right.
you're going to have to bring in supporting temporary restrooms.
Okay.
So this is our recommendation based on some of the uses around this number of fixtures, if we split it into 2 separate rooms or 1.
Probably should you.
So those are the spaces. I think just to talk about how you use the space, this notch here on the right-hand side, that is where you would queue undercover to order food and then pick up your food. So there's kind of a large waiting area. It's about 15 feet by 30 undercover, which is nice from the elements. And it obviously faces the beer garden. And also faces to the south, the event lawn. So it's legible. If you're out on the lawn, you can see the building, you know where you need to go for refreshments or if you need to use the restroom. Little details we're looking at, we have a similar overhang outside of the restroom. We'll show an image of what that looks like, but that could be a nice space. If you have families, you park a stroller there, it's undercover. You get the kids out, you get the family out, you go into the restroom, and you come back out and you have a place to kind of gather yourselves before you go back to what you were doing before. The north side of the building, so between the building and the pool, the pool fence there, that's kind of a utility area. There's still pedestrian circulation, but that's access into the kitchen and access into park storage and a small mechanical room. So here's some images of what it could look like in the materials. So this is from the south looking northeast. So this is the restroom area I just talked about on the left, the covered area, and then the beer garden as you move through the space to the left. So you can see the outer kind of shell of the building is the stone material. It's kind of the lighter color. And then where it's protected, we've proposed using the lighter natural wood on both the walls and the ceilings. A view from the south, Aneshka mentioned there's the stairs between the event lawn coming up. So as you ascend up to grab a beverage or a bite to eat or just to pass through the space, that would be the covered area for ordering and pickup. And then a final image of what it might look like from the beer garden or the current Century Garden looking west.
This is more detailed than I think we had at Parks and Rec, but
Mhm.
it looks like you've got long windows into like the serving and kitchen area. Is that
So we
right? Like people will be looking and able to see into it. Is that the intent?
They could, it's also adding legibility and lightness. We don't want the
Yeah.
building to feel really heavy. So if there is kitchen equipment planned for there, maybe it's a light film, but just the idea that at dusk that the building has activity.
Yeah.
And then so it's legible. And then also for the folks that are in those spaces, that they're not just in this really kind of dark space, that they do have the views and natural light coming in.
Thanks.
That it?
That's
Okay.
that's it.
Great.
You have a green
you.
roof, it looked like.
Yes, I failed to mention that. I think it's
Yeah.
some of the views that Aneshka.
Yep.
So we are
Yep.
looking at a few things. When we look at a design of a building, we're looking at what the AI calls as a framework for design excellence, and a lot of those measures are sustainable. And I know there's no initiatives to go for a LEED credential, but we are looking at things like water ecology for this project. So we are interested in the idea of a green roof. So it's simple as something like as the sedum trays that can help filter the water and to offset some of the BMPs that we're required to do elsewhere. We would like to, I think, celebrate that fact. And we know we can't have the green roof, a deep green roof that's growing over, but the idea of maybe a trellis or a vine growing something on the building just to celebrate the fact that we're in a park and to celebrate ecology and wellness on the building. So
It's a flat roof. Have you?
it is a flat roof.
Panels make any sense for any energy generation for this?
Potentially. We haven't run any calculations on that. There's also the budget, so it'd be first cost, life cycle cost analysis. We haven't done that for panels, but
Didn't know it
we could look into that.
Capture the cost of doing that.
Sure.
One more on that note, kind of back to the inside. Is there, what is being proposed in terms of like dishwashing? Like would the facility be able to use glass or plates, or would it have to be disposable?
I think it would be up to the vendor primarily. I think we're planning for a 3-compartment sink with the dishwashing component like you see in a commercial kitchen.
Okay, that's what I
It'd be
meant. Like
required
you're
by code.
planning to allow that or
Yeah.
to provide the ability for it. Yeah,
Yes, and then it's up to
Thank you.
your agreement with the vendor on who,
Yeah. Whether we.
who provides that, right?
So the, 2 more questions. So on the kitchen space,
Mhm.
if we wanted to use the beer garden for events, I assume what you're envisioning is a kitchen that's going to be amenable to that size event in terms of providing a variety enough food to make real event space, or are they going to expect it to bring it all in and then just warm it in like a toaster oven kind of
And a
deal?
large event, we're probably going to utilize that
The food
truck
trucks.
space, and we'll have other supporting vendors.
Okay.
I think the
I'm
way
just
we-
thinking like if you wanted like a high-end event on the beer garden, you're probably not going to have food trucks. You're probably going to want past hors d'oeuvres and probably going to want that sort of cocktail style. I want to make sure the kitchen's built out enough to be able to do that.
Oh,
I
and
guess
if
that's
it's
what
just
I'm-
serving the beer garden, I imagine that could be accommodated in that space. I thought you were talking about a larger event like on the lawn.
Not like 500 people.
Certainly
I'm
can handle that,
thinking
right?
like somebody renting out the beer garden and wanting like a nice like cocktail hour or
Yeah,
something.
if you've got a kitchen that size, you could use it for catering as well. It's more than
E-
large enough to be a catering.
Even without the hood, I guess that's my question.
Yeah, as long as they're not cooking in there. I mean, we've got catering kitchen space within the center of Clayton that's smaller than this kitchen is
Okay.
envisioned to be.
And I take it with the park storage and mechanical, that's all the HVAC. So you're going to have
Yeah.
AC and heat.
That's correct.
Okay.
And then some storage for the parks team to store things.
Got it. Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Move on.
Thank you.
Okay. We're back to the fun stuff. So kind of a little bit more details about hardscape and softscape. The diagram here you see are how we've sort of separated out the hardscape. You can see the pedestrian circulation in purple. We're thinking that's kind of a brushed concrete to save money where we can, and then doing pavers in sort of these areas, kind of like we call it like acupuncture. So you do it in areas that like you want something special in. So you've got that in those VIP areas or these, it's shaded areas with seating and a fire pit. And I'll show you a rendering of that so you can see what it looks like, even if there isn't a big event. And then in the beer garden, we were thinking of having decomposed granite. That's a slightly different material. It's essentially like crushed stone. It's got a binder in it. It's better than using concrete because it's more permeable. So we're kind of meeting that sustainability. And so that it's also kind of, you can have trees grow through it. So it's kind of the aesthetic that you have in a lot of the European beer gardens. And then for the food trucks, we're thinking about also having maybe some sort of special material, but we'll see what that turns out to be depending on cost and pricing. And then pickleball will have that acrylic surface. This is the drop-off area, and I think I've already bored most people in this room with the statistics on this, but essentially if you're having an event with 4,500 people, you need around 9 drop-off places. So we're going to make sure that that new drop-off area has spaces for 9 cars. In terms of softscape, yes, go
Real
ahead.
quick, again, you may be getting to this, but based on that, you're assuming that you can hold 4,500 people? Is that the generalized assumption?
Yeah, I have here, I can go down to that diagram actually. Yeah, so you kind of have the max capacity, and this is done, with, if you had dense standing, even in the beer garden, which I don't think you ever would, but dense standing, if you have like a really big band coming in and most people are standing, you could fit 5,000 people in this. 4,500 to 5,000. I think more realistically for a community event, you're going to be doing around 2,000 people, with having people sitting in the lawn, cafe seating in that beer garden, people sitting in the food court area. That's kind of a more feasible.
In Tony and Matt, like for like Jazz Festival, how many people are we talking about? Like, would this be where that would go going forward? If we wanted to?
I thought it was around 3,500.
Yeah, I
people.
don't think it was
Right.
5,000.
Yeah, and I think it's my understanding that some of those events we could consider moving to this
Yes.
site.
I think that's the idea.
I don't want to
think-
pin anybody down. I'm just trying to
Right.
wrap my head around, one, I'm bad with numbers. So like that gives me a good sense of, given that volume, kind of how to think about it. Having lived in Chicago when they have this in downtown and Grant Park, like I've seen how it's worked at that size. So I'm just trying to think about how it would work on this size. So thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, I think the hope is that to alleviate some of the stresses and closing streets on staff and stuff, it's thinking about having events like that here. Yeah. Mhm.
I prefer the interruptions. Please ask questions. So for softscape, kind of the edges, we're going to do a native planting, some of the, kind of the buffers from Brentwood Boulevard. It'll be a mix of, and I think we heard that the park board also wants kind of more native planting and a mix on the edges. We'll have a small area, kind of just a lawn area for if you do have those large events and you want to put down porta potties or something like that, or if there's an ice rink, a place where you can do snow melt. And then we're discussing what this material is for the flexible lawn. We're kind of in between artificial turf and like a reinforced fiber lawn. And I have some information on that as well, but that's kind of where we're leaning towards, because you want to have, you want to make sure that it's durable enough for those large events. And then we're also thinking about sustainability. So looking at the studies around that.
You're going to talk a little bit more about that.
Would you like
Yeah, I
me
think that,
to?
I mean, I think there have been some questions about maybe just talking about, the pros and cons of synthetic turf versus fiber reinforced, I think that might be helpful.
Yeah, we've actually done more research since this Monday as well.
Okay.
So I think probably everyone in this room is kind of familiar with what synthetic turf is, right? It's kind of that carpet you put down. You've got a layer of there's a mat underneath it, and then there's drainage, aggregate and all of that. I'll just go through kind of in terms of cost, it's got the highest cost sort of at the beginning. Maintenance, it will have the lowest maintenance cost, although in St. Louis, it's a little bit debatable because you do have really hot summers here, or we have really hot summers here. And so that turf can get really hot, and so you still have to water it during the summer months. Durability, that's going to be your highest and most durable kind of material to use in that area. It's excellent for stagers and vehicles. The kind of drawback, the lifespan is between 8 to 15 years. And so even that initial investment, you're going to have to come back and replace it within, depending on how well you take care of it. In terms of user comfort, probably lowest user comfort. And it works structurally, for ice rinks. So it's great for kind of if you have an area that's used frequently, but sort of recommendation is this fiber reinforced natural turf. And so what that is, you have regular turf, and then they till this like fiber into the soil into the first 3 or 4 inches below. And then you do kind of a sand, like you do a drainage level below that. And so it it prevents compaction of the roots so that you can have grass growing and it grows back a lot quicker, and you're not really damaging it during kind of these big events. So the install cost is a lot lower than it is for synthetic turf. It is, behaves like it's grass, so behaves like grass, so it's cool in the summer. The kind of thing that you have to be worried about there is like event recovery. Obviously, for synthetic turf, you can keep having events over and over again, versus this, it needs a little bit of a break. It is designed for heavy loads, so we usually use it. You can use it on projects like we'll do fire lanes with it, right? So if you're running a fire truck and you don't always want to have concrete for fire trucks, you can do this like fiber underneath the turf, and you can run trucks over it.
But I think and sorry to interrupt, but that fiber reinforced, I didn't really understand, but there is like, even though it's much cooler, which, would make things much more comfortable in the summer and has this very natural component to it, if we have a really busy event, or if we end up deciding to put temporary ice down and like, it ends in February, there might be a month where this area is like roped off because the grass literally has to grow again. So there is going to be that temporary time where if there's a really busy event, or if it's pouring and raining and you've got people like running on it, there might be a period where we can't have people on it for a little bit. And I know you guys were gonna, because they do use this material. There's a huge concert area in Chicago. And
under the Pritzker Pavilion, if you've ever been.
they use it there. So I know you guys were maybe going to talk to, just because we had questions on Monday about this material, just trying to understand how long it would take to bounce back, or, what their experience has been, because obviously thousands of people attend concerts in Pritzker Pavilion every summer. So
yeah, that's a very heavily used space. So in terms of maintenance, this is a little bit more maintenance than regular turf, because we're going to do that drainage layer below. So you're going to need to water it more, but it also means that if there's a lot of, like, this is not going to have puddles, right? This is going to drain really well. So you're not having to wait if there was a huge storm event and you have a concert the next day, it'll be fine.
Sorry, quick question for the turf and like heat. I know, like, for example, at Merrimack, they don't allow the kids on the turf when it hits, whatever temperature, and that's during the school year. And so then I know our summers get much hotter. So if we're hosting events on here, how is that going to?
That's why the fiber reinforced turf doesn't get hot.
Right.
The way the synthetic.
For synthetic turf, I mean, what they would do is, they would water it. And so you're thinking that you're saving money by doing synthetic turf because you're not having to water the grass, but really because in St. Louis it gets so hot, you would have to still water it. So there are certain things in terms of maintenance, like the synthetic turf is going to have the least maintenance cost year to year, although over a 25 years span, that's more expensive than the fiber reinforced natural turf. But if you're just looking at kind of maintenance costs.
Are you recommending the fiber reinforced natural turf for this space?
We are, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're, unless, so this is the research we've done, and obviously you're not going to have to read this, but we looked at, they've been doing research in Zurich, and there's another city in the States that they kind of looked at kind of the difference between the two and looked at the life cycle analysis. And so what they figured out is if you're looking at per hour, like if you're looking at sustainability per hour of use, then the synthetic turf gives you a better yield. But that means that you're using that synthetic turf like 14 hours a day, or you need to, it's for like sports fields. So when people tell you kind of these studies, it's like they're looking at it like per hour of use, and really I don't think for this case and for this scenario that's really what you're looking at, right? You're looking at, this is not going to be rented out every hour constantly. Yeah, so most studies support the fiber reinforced soil.
And and maybe this is something you already know, maybe it's something you can check with the Chicago folks if you haven't already. It's like in terms of like maintenance,
Yeah.
it's clearly more maintenance than artificial turf. But when I'm thinking about a budget and staff and mowing lawns and water, like how much is it no different than mowing a lawn like in the rest of the park?
It's the
Or
same.
is there a whole different maintenance you need to manage?
No, it's the same. I mean, because it's the same. It will be more water use because of that drain, right? It's draining faster, so there'll be more water use. But in terms of like maintaining the grass, it's the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
I asked a question about that too. Also, having learned from school district property, the replacement cost is huge. And it comes up.
For
in what
synthetic
you said
turf?
8 to 10. I thought it was like
Yes.
20 years, but is there any replacement cost? Is that compacts or does the
Fiber.
does the fiber need to be replaced or does
That is an excellent question. I asked and it's like 50 to 75 years. I mean, essentially, no.
Okay.
Essentially, you're fine.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And then the other question, the big issue with artificial turf is the off-gassing, the chemicals and things like that. Is they,
The fiber.
yeah, what are they using? that?
I think, hold on, I had it in there. I think it's only like it's like 5% of the, so it's it's very much negligible compared to synthetic turf. It's 5% of the, hold on, where is it? Oh, maybe I took it out.
Trading the plastics for fertilizer.
Gotcha.
There's no good, we don't have a totally pure environmental option here. So I do want to make it clear that,
Right.
that you've got the plastics if you're doing with the artificial, if you're going with the synthetic turf, you're still going to have environmental
Take care of the
impact because
grass,
it's going to
right.
take a lot of water and it's going to take
Fertilizer.
fertilizer to make that work.
Like
At lea-
any grass would, right? You're
Yes.
Like
Not more.
any
than
grass
that,
would, the water load's going to be higher
because it-
because of the way it drains.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
it might have to be watered twice a day. It's gonna be similar to like a putting green or a tee box at a golf course. That's got that sand base that requires a lot of water.
And obviously, unlike other parts of the park, we don't really water. We'll put a water.
There'd be an
Irrigation
irrigation system
system.
that would do it. yeah.
But and with the fertilizer, we at least always can use natural fertilizer as opposed to your traditional petroleum.
In the end, the fertilizer has to produce nitrogen to work. And that nitrogen's what causes the issue downstream when it gets into water.
No,
which
and
this will do. So
I'm just saying there's a difference between the petroleum based and fertilizer in terms of
There is,
like
yeah.
the environmental, there's
use a
different
more
options you
natural
can use.
fertilizer, but in the end, that it's the nitrogen
It's still there.
concern is the concern. But I just wanted to throw that out there that it isn't, hey, one's really environmentally bad and the other one's good. There's impacts with both.
Okay, a couple more. And so in the areas, I'm sorry, this is the first time I'm seeing this. In the areas like the VIP seating, there's a lot of hardscape going into here. And the more, the impervious surface increase is pretty real. Are there any other places, because of how strong this is, if they can do fire trucks, is there any other places like the VIP places or somewhere else where there could be more of a permeable surface used versus just the concrete or the?
Yeah, so we can, the permeable or the VIP areas, or kind of those areas of the shade structures, we can use pavers that are permeable pavers. We're also, there'll definitely be a stormwater strategy for all of this. So even the fertilizer and all of that runoff, we're hoping to do kind of these nice rain gardens to help treat the quality of water before it's being released. But yes, you bring up a great point. I mean, right now, what we have now is the flexible lawn space is all concrete. So actually we are sort of becoming more permeable, but yes, we're still thinking about the same way that I talked about the beer garden, right? We don't want that to be all concrete. We're trying to put in that decomposed granite. So it is something that we're taking seriously, making sure.
Garden is to help treat the water is great. I hadn't heard
Yes,
that yet.
yeah.
I just want to say I'm thrilled that you did this work when they came to Parks and Rec a few weeks ago. It was just like artificial turf and there was no consideration of it. And I think, not to make you go back to the first slide, but one of the things that I think is really important is that when people tell us they want green space, I don't believe they want artificial turf. And so, I'm thrilled to see how the reinforced lawn compares in terms of cost and maintenance and durability. I mean, I think the use cases described in that column, in that table are actually exactly the scenarios we're talking about programming in this space.
Yeah.
Versus like an athletic complex. And so, so I think that's great. I think the only other thing I would say is that if we have concerns about the grass, the other thing that I brought up then was like, even like, what other kind of hardscape options do we have? Like, because we're not playing sports on this, like, we're not playing lawn sports, like field sports in this area. So, the other point that I want to make, so I definitely support the reinforced turf, natural, like no plastics in our, not like adding plastics in our parks where we have other options. Can you go to the slide that showed the layers? Because the picture, the video is blocking what the layers are. I just want to make sure I actually understand what all the layers are.
Yes, yeah.
Like, what is geofiber? Is it natural or is it?
That's what they're tilling in. That's those like, or if you want to.
Yeah, those fibers, the best way to describe them, we've used them under greenways and things like that. It looks like Easter grass. So if you ever met Easter grass, the little fine fibers, it looks like that. They probably are some sort of product, I would imagine. We can get you the specifics on
Okay.
that. So they are a fiber. You put it in concrete also, it's like fiber mesh. It helps strengthen the concrete when you don't use reinforced like rebar. It does have those qualities. We can check and see if there's
I'm
all
just curious.
But what it does is when it's compacted, it basically helps tie things together more than you used to use fire lanes. You used to use those little
Rings like we have down Wydown.
that, which is
Yeah.
all plastic, right? So we've gotten away from there and we've gone to this system, which we've tested on a few different projects. There's two important projects that I hope as we're working through this, we're working on the Director's Garden at Tower Grove Park. There is an event lawn there. Now, granted, it's not to this scale. It's probably about 1/4 of this scale. It will have this same reinforced lawn product on there. So potentially we could see this in operation. You guys could visit it as well. I know at Keener Plaza, they're taking that big mound down that was lawn area because it just wasn't usable, and they're flattening it out, and they're going to be using this product as well. So we reached out to the installer to get this information. But I definitely think as we get more into it, we can definitely provide you all with more information. But basically, that sand product is really, we're actually getting away from a lot of heavy structural soils that have a lot of rock and going more towards some of this sand that allows it to drain, but it also allows for the strength that we're getting instead of a lot of heavy rock and all this type of stuff. So that's what you're seeing, all those different layers. There is a drainage layer at the very bottom. It's important to note that this all will be under drained. So similar to a baseball field or something like that, this will all be under drained, captured, and then goes to those rain gardens that we're talking about, which treat both volume, like runoff reduction, and water quality, both those two things. So.
Awesome. And then their question for this section, I think, is about accessibility. So I'm curious about the decomposed granite and the pavers, because I think I really like those surfaces, like generally. But I know I've seen like, no matter how well they're taken care of, like pavers get uneven and it poses accessibility issues.
So
And I don't know exactly what the decomposed granite is like.
the decomposed granite has
A binder.
a binder in it, sorry.
It has an organic binder that actually ties together, and it actually kind of hardens like a crust. So, but it still allows water to pass through, but it allows a crust where you're not kicking it onto to the concrete, or it's getting people caught in people's shoes a lot and scratching up terrazzo floors when you go. So it has enough to keep it in place, so it's not loosey-goosey to walk through it. It can allow for wheels and things to pass through it.
Yeah, strollers or scooters.
Exactly. It has just tight enough that we can actually do it. We've used it a lot on bike paths and things like that as well.
Okay.
And then the pavers, it's a great conversation. So we've been doing a lot of pavers throughout the city, and a lot of the things that we've been doing, the Brickline Greenway has pavers. They're on a concrete base. They have a small sand setting bed, but important to note, they have a micro bevel joint, so there's not a lot of pillowing. We've been working with David Newberger and the folks at the Office of the Disabled there to choose a product that we can use that has the least amount of discomfort for folks with disabilities. So
Right.
If we do use pavers, they will be a micro bevel, so they won't have that heavy pillaring. We think about that even down to the level of expansion joints, making sure we're not getting there's ripples and things like that. So we'd be very conscious about that change in level. That's the one thing with permeable pavers you have to be
Yeah.
cautious about, because permeable pavers have gaps. So in places where people are more congregating and not moving, it might make sense in those seats. But in pathways, those are really, those differential settling, because it's not, but things we'll very conscious of.
So probably that area in front of the stage, we
Right.
do concrete base, and then any of those like areas outside, we
Yeah.
could do a permeable paver.
Right.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, no, go ahead.
So I was curious, I didn't see anything, and maybe we're not at that level of detail, regarding just some basic utility things. So I heard reference that we'll have irrigation, at least for the lawn. I'm wondering, will we have any like, water stations? What about lighting? If we have like a large number of people here, I'm concerned about safety. So what, are we contemplating lighting?
Yeah, so lighting will be discussed at our next meeting, that's going to be January 12th, I believe. So
Yeah.
we'll provide
Mhm.
some options for lighting. We have talked about, even for the food trucks, having power and potentially water hookups for those. We'll have gas lines running into for all of the fire pits on the outside. So it is in conversation, but we are in SD set, so it really is kind of a narrative at this point, and it was in the pricing package, but we're still working through the drawings. Yeah, but those are great thinking. There's just some in terms of scale of these things. So just for comparison, and yeah, you guys can't see because all this stuff is in here, but just to get an understanding of the size of the project, right? So we looked at some projects around St. Louis and kind of the neighboring areas. So for example, Keener Plaza that we just talked about, right? If that overlaid on top of Shaw Park, and you can see the size of their ice rink, right? And what that would look like maybe on our site. Kind of the Chicken and Pickle in St. Charles, which is kind of a similar programming, right? And again, their ice rink, their stage. So we've been looking at event spaces or kind of these large gathering spaces around just to get an understanding and kind of right size this, especially the stage. And this is the VIP area, or the area with the shade structure and a fire pit and some really nice seating. I think, if you don't have to run if there isn't a big event, this is an opportunity for, I think we talked a lot about like where you could have donor opportunities. This is like a great place to have branding for donors and things like that. I think it's a great place, if you have sort of a more social event happening on the event lawn, you can have like a family picnic, or, you see that a lot in parks where people just kind of rent out gazebos. So it's kind of that it could function as that as well. So that's that shade structure fire pit area on the side. And then ice rink, and I know everyone wants to talk about the ice rink, so we did do a lot of research on that as well. We went back and forth in the last couple of weeks on the sizing of the ice rink, whether it's an ice rink, whether it's like an NHL sized or a high school size hockey rink, whether we do a ribbon. And so I think we're still kind of trying to decide that. But I think we're leaning sort of closer to a smaller rink. We've definitely decided that it's a temporary. It's something where the city either buys all the equipment and stores it, or they rent out the equipment, so that there's a lot of flexibility in how you do that. But what we're as designers trying to make sure that we're incorporating and making sure you have the space for things like the space rental. We're thinking about where the rubber flooring goes, where you have the tent for the Zamboni, and the snow melt, and potentially like an area for hot chocolate and fire pits and all of that fun stuff. So it's something we're still discussing, and we're making sure that our design can accommodate whatever the city decides in the future with its budget.
Yeah, and I mean, I want to say, because I think we probably really could get in the weeds about the ice rink. So I want to make sure everybody knows the idea is to create the space and then make sure that there are different things that we can accommodate there, perhaps temporary ice in the winter that, I think I love the example up on the left. So, I mean, I think going forward, well, the hope is that the design will, have some sort of perhaps like temporary ice in the winter, but that's not something we have to decide right now. So I just, we don't have to decide what sort of perhaps temporary ice we might have 2 years from now today. So I think the important thing though is just to understand that the flexible event space will perhaps have some temporary ice in the future. And then the ice, I mean, we have had a lot of discussions at the steering committee about what, whether there would be a lease to own option, whether we would purchase the ice equipment. So I think, again, like discussing all these different options, and the team has definitely helped us put us in touch with different programming people that would literally come and do everything for us to everything, so there's a lot of different options that I think we could, discuss ad nauseum, and we don't have time for that today, but just so everybody knows, that's kind of, there have been a lot of discussions about it. So.
Real quick.
Yeah, I just want to be mindful of
everything would
everybody's
have to be
time.
put in
Yeah.
at the time of doing the park, right? At the time of doing this, all the infrastructure would have to be.
Yes,
done.
yeah, and the idea is we're not putting any sort of coolant down because this is not going to be an ice rink. But the hope is maybe there'll be some temporary ice in the winter, so everything will lay on top of this flexible event space.
Okay, and last question. on
Yeah.
this. What is the season currently in St. Louis for ice? Do you know?
I
And if you
think
don't
the
know,
idea
then-
No, I think the idea we've talked about like 8 weeks, 8 to 10 weeks or something. So it'd be a temporary time frame. Yep.
Yeah, and like I said, we're trying to make sure that we have like the power infrastructure in place so that when you bring them in, you don't have to like bring in a generator. So we're trying to make sure that if you are running it, that you can run it smoothly, and we're lowering the costs of running it. It's also size wise, you can decide to just do a small kind of 48 by 80 ice rink and not do this ice ribbon. But in the future, if this is super popular, that you can do an ice ribbon and kind of do like a really an experience in this space, and that it compares to other lovely, ice rink experiences across the country. So you have the flexibility for that in the future. And then lastly, in the beer garden, I know I briefly talked about that stage that's kind of facing both a large event, and you can have a small stage and close down that beer garden and have a smaller event up here. The stairs coming up to the building, that area in front of this stage, that's hardscape. And then some lovely planting, and we will be replacing, you had asked about the beer garden, we would need to replace that existing wall on the side there, so I wanted to be transparent about that as well.
Is the last thing that you're kind of talking about is budget? Are we kind of getting in? Because we're just getting low on time, so I just want to be, and then. Thank you, Nishka.
Hey there, I'm Colette Koszewski. I'm with Navigate Building Solutions. We serve as the owner's rep for the city for this project. So when on the onset of this project, the city identified 6.9, just under $7 million of funding available for the project. So we want to periodically take a check on that and make sure that we're still fitting in that budget. So that's what we did at the end of that first design phase that they described, the schematic design. We estimated what we saw on paper, construction wise. Your total program budget, that 6.9 million has to include also your soft costs, the cost of a design team, other consultants, any furnishings that will go in the park. So we did a check. We did a detailed estimate of the construction and all of the other soft costs that go with it. And right now it's tracking to be on budget, that this is feasible within your $6.9 million budget. So any questions?
Less for you, but more for David, I guess, and Tony is, it would be good to know as we get farther along what we're thinking from an operational budget standpoint. Like this 6.9 seems to make sense, but in my mind, to kind of use this space the way I would love to see it and the way I've seen it in Chicago, I would be hard pressed to think we're not hiring another person in park to just operate the event season for that, which I'm fine with. I'm just thinking through those year-to-year operational costs, either in people or additional police officers, because if it's busy every night of the week, even using the fire pits and like people hanging out, we're going to need to make sure we staff that. So If you guys can start thinking through those, that'd be helpful to kind of
Yeah, and
have a sense of.
right now, we're really focused on the construction portion of it. As you know, with this initial contract, we're just getting to the point of time where we're
Yeah.
going to have construction drawings in hand, so we know what the cost is, and then when we're ready to bid the actual project, we can. We've got a whole nother set of conversations we're going to need to have with the Parks and Rec Commission as it relates to programming and other things. So we're definitely thinking about that. Don't know quite what that looks like at the moment.
Okay,
but
fair. Okay.
that will be a part of the discussion as we move along.
Yeah, because that's like the other part of this, right? Is you get it built and then it's like,
Yeah.
okay, how much is it going to cost us a year to just maintain it in
And
the way that we all want
really
it to
when
be?
we dive in on the ICE discussion, because ICE is an operational cost when it's a temporary feature. And it's a massive operational cost. So that's something we'll need to discuss later.
One other point I wanted to touch on, totally unrelated to budget, and I apologize if it is in your slides yet to come, but one of our next steps, in addition to moving on with construction, is to hold an open house for the public. We're looking at the last week in January, just to give them an update on, we heard you, here's what we're working on so far, just to keep them updated. So, okay.
Great. I mean, I think we'll continue to hear more about this project. Obviously, does anybody kind of have some last minute burning questions, or we still have one more thing to tackle in our discussion. So if the question can wait, but
Not a question. It's just awesome. I'm just really impressed and excited. So that's all.
great. All right. I think, thank you, everybody, very much.
you.
We appreciate the presentation.
Thank you.
Happy holidays. Happy New Year. All right, so the last item to talk about is Wydown. I think
Thank you.
David's gonna
Yeah.
go over couple brief slides.
Okay, so what I just handed out is information you've already seen. It's that previous memo that was distributed. I just wanted to make sure you had that in hand, that had the results from the EngageClayton.com survey that was up for about a month with the Wydown concepts. Tonight, what we'd like to talk about, and I'd mentioned with street lighting, we've got another month before we get together with the city council. And we want to keep these things moving, especially putting together scopes of service so that we can go out and acquire design professionals, contractors, whoever we need in order to implement these things. So I wanted to talk for a minute today about the Wydown Boulevard concepts and see where the city council's at this point in time with the information you have to date. Just as a really quick recap on this, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because I know you've all seen it and we're short on time at the moment. But concept one was just going back and basically replanting the median with trees, much like it was before. Let's put the trees back in, streetlights, irrigation, maybe some plantings that are at the edges of the medians, but really what you see all the way down Wydown and what you saw in the area between University and the city limits previously. So the second concept was where you had these prairie pockets and understory ground covers. There was some area that they showed for art, but really the differentiating feature between concepts 1 and 2 were these large oval planting beds that were kind of scattered throughout the medians. Concept 3 was that the echo plan, I'll call it, that they put together. And so that one had quite a bit of hardscaping to it. It had a lot of native landscaping. The designs, I would say, were much more detailed than what you saw with just the regular replanting where you go in. There's a lot going on at that understory level along with the hardscape. So got some stuff up in the corner that might make it a little difficult to see if you're in the room, but just concept 1, the estimated cost was between $1.7 and $1.9 million for it. The one thing I will point out is when you look at these, the tree spacing is really pretty similar in these plans, as is the streetlight spacing that you see here. So those counts really don't change a whole lot. What's changing is what's going on underneath those trees, that understory. So I just want to point that out. But the cost here estimated between $1.7 and $1.9 million. Concept 2, where you have those oval beds that were underneath those understory plantings, you're looking at an estimated cost of $2 million to $2.2 million was the estimate from the designer. And then finally, the eco landscape sculpture solution they had is $2.2 to $2.5 million. So we've got a range here from 1.7 up to potentially $2.5 million in total costs in order to restore the medians there. We had the survey that went live. A couple of the key questions I just want to put up here.
David, if I can, sorry to interrupt, but since since you talked about the budget numbers for the projects, do you have any guesstimate as to the operational cost year to year different to maintain option 1 versus 2 and 3? Because I would assume with all the under beds and everything may require additional person power and cost.
Yeah, replacement cost is going to be high on those too.
Okay.
If you have to go in and replace those plantings versus throwing down grass seed, that's going to be different. On the natives, they're great long-term. Once it's in place and grows, it really doesn't require a whole lot. It's an area that you can let go to some extent. Where if you go back with the concept we have, you see Brightview or a contractor out there every week, every other week, mowing those medians. So in the end, there's not a whole lot of fluctuation because there's pros and cons to all of these. We can run those numbers for you, but I would say it's not going to be a wide enough difference where I think it's a big component for
Not enough to
consideration.
factor in when it's got it.
Right. So just a quick overview of the survey results, really the key results that we saw here. The highest ranked item that we saw from the public was concept 1, going back in with the replanting. We've got the average rankings here. Concept 3 was actually the second most popular, and concept 2, which is the understory plantings with those kind of oval planting areas, that one was at a 2.43, so considerably lower than concept 1 came in the overall scoring. Another good way to look at this is, do you have any concerns with the concepts? So when you look at concept 1, 77% of the people that responded said they don't have any concerns with concept 1, which is going back in with what we had there previously. There were a few other concerns that came up in the comments, but you can see neighborhood character, cost, maintenance, those things really weren't community concerns when we surveyed the public.
Is the other please specified somewhere?
It's in the comments
the
that are in the survey
detail,
results.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those were wide ranging.
Yeah.
And on the
yeah.
back, or in the last couple pages of the survey results, Anna actually went through and tried to compile those and give you an idea of what those comments really were. Do you have any concerns about concept 2? Fit with neighborhood character, almost half of the respondents had a concern about neighborhood character and how 2 would fit given the context of the neighborhood itself and the rest of Wydown. You can see some concerns with cost. There's that other category.
2 is Prairie Pockets.
What's that?
2 is Prairie Pockets, right?
2 was those under 2 is the oval landscape understory. I can show you I keep
I think it's
hitting buttons on my laptop,
already.
which doesn't do anything here. If it's hard to see here, but you can see these plantings underneath here. It's not necessarily that native.
Okay, 2 is art.
Right.
And okay.
2 is art along with this grown up ground cover.
Well, and I just want to, I believe, I have the idea that we aren't necessarily picking 1, 2, or 3. Like we could mix components of them.
Correct.
This is a very early concept to get feedback.
Yeah. And
right?
so, yeah, let me show you this and then I'll ask
Yeah.
you the question here. On concept 3, you can see the concerns that people have, maintenance being the biggest one, neighborhood character at 22%, none at 22%, cost, and the other items here. Looking at this, I mean, concept 1 was the highest ranked. There are very few concerns. 77% of the respondents didn't have concerns at all with that particular concept. My question today, because we need to get moving on the design process. We need to actually go out, get a landscape architect and an engineer together and on board. We need to do an RFQ to get this thing going. It's going to take some time. But we really want to get that process moving. My question is, with the information you have to date, are you ready to give us some direction on these 3 concepts? And if not, what information do we need to provide so that you can make that decision? For us, if the city council said we want to go with concept 1, it's a much quicker process. I will say this, than if you were to go with concept 3 that had a lot of hardscape and walls and other things that would need to be designed there. So there is a speed component to this overall process. And I want to be clear on that too, because it's not necessarily captured in the survey. But I guess that's my question, because we want to know how to scope this thing. Do you have enough right now? Do you want to see more? We're already through, our full contract with the landscape architect that put these concept designs together. But what do we need to do for you all? Or are you ready to just give us some general, hey, go out and hire somebody to run detailed designs on one of these concepts? So I'll leave it at that.
I'll maybe start with our Ward 1 council people, since you guys are closest to it. I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you have strong concerns, I'd love to.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to folks who were at the event, and then obviously we got a lot of other feedback online, and obviously I see this every day, right by my house. So, I was honestly surprised by the strength of the preference for option 1. And I say that because I believe that all 3 options are like planting the trees, like you said, essentially in the same density and types and all of that. And so what I can't help but wonder is, or what I want to think about as a member of the city council is what, if any, opportunity do we have something that absolutely honors that desire for a strong tree canopy, while also really considering the opportunity of something that's somewhat transformative. I mean, we have had lots of engaged master planning that has suggested people want more native landscaping, and people want art, and people want things like that. And so what I wonder, which is, I don't know if there's a way that we could try to get at this, is whether people felt let's just do number 1 because we want the trees and we want the trees back fast, and just get those trees in. Why aren't they there yet? I'll give you $1 million to buy ones that are already a foot wide. I mean, literally, that is what I hear from my neighbors. And what I can't tease from the responses is whether people were afraid that even considering the other options would take away from that. And so what I would actually love to know from you, David, is, given the fact that the plan for the trees along the space is quite similar between all 3 options, whether we can't actually start that and engage in some additional consideration of whether what goes around the trees is just natural lawn or is something different. But don't let the plan for tree planting wait for that. How possible is that?
It isn't necessarily the tree planting that's the issue, because the trees are similar in all these.
Yeah, that's what.
It's really, where's the irrigation going to be? If you've got landscape beds, it's going to be a different irrigation configuration that it's going to be just lawn. If you're going to have the hardscape that you see with concept 3 throughout this area, then that's going to impact where your bed, where your irrigation, where your street light electrical circuits are run. There's these other things that are going on beneath the surface that are impacted by those decisions more than just, trees, and where the trees are located. Now, that's not to say with concept 1, you don't have areas on the ends where, if you go down Wydown, there are various plantings on the ends of the medians.
Yeah, they make it really hard.
If CCF wanted to donate some piece of art to put on the end caps of some of these medians, there's nothing, if you went with concept 1, that would preclude you from doing that. You could set aside the space to put that type of feature in. It's really at the outset, that understory portion that's really through the heart of that median. Are we going in with something really simple and minimal, or are we going in with a more complicated design? And I would say that everything underground is going to be dependent upon that choice that's made at the surface.
And you would want to know, to that point, it sounds like you're saying we need to know what kind of irrigation plan we're gonna have before we do the tree planting?
I would say that we need to put out an RFQ that has a scope of work. And that scope is going to be informed by the decision that's made regarding landscape versus hardscape. Whether or not we wanted, what types of beds we need, how important is a landscape designer going to be in this process versus how important the engineers will be in this particular process.
I guess what I'm trying to
Um,
get at is actually, what if we stop and think of it as two separate projects? Like what, and maybe it really isn't possible, but if we're not, I mean, and I guess it depends what the rest of the council thinks, so I'll just wait and we'll talk more later.
So my understanding from all of this and the feedback that I got is that what we try to do is present three very general concepts and differentiate them. And that we're now at a point where let's go with a general concept. That isn't to say it's going to be exactly like we saw, that we're going to hire somebody that's going to make sure that we get to see what that looks like and embraces what we want. So given that, what I've heard is number one, people were very strong about generally replace what we had, as opposed to embrace all kinds of radically different things, at least radically different compared to the way it was in the past. Second, get going on it already. It's taking a long time. So I think it is important that we start initiating those things. I think the idea of introducing things like park benches or water stations, or maybe a planting area or two, or room for a sculpture. I think those are all things we should embrace. But to me, that's part of what concept one is. And so that's what I heard. And I actually heard a lot of pushback. While there were people that certainly supported the other concepts, there were actually more negative comments about some of those other ones as well. So they were certainly more controversial, or at least more polarizing topics to bring up. So that's the feedback that I got.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I think when I hear from people, they're just like you said, Rick, let's just get going already. And that's my biggest concern with I'm not discounting having some sort of prairie pockets at the end or something like that, something that does embrace some native plants. And I feel like art was very negative in the survey. But I think people thought that we were buying art at the expense of doing something else. You know what I mean? And I think art, in my mind, would only happen if CCF is able to fundraise for art. But I just think and I don't know if people just, of course they want to just put back what's already there, and because this picture makes it look like we're just going to put back, and hopefully it will be eventually. But I just wonder if people don't necessarily want to see something, it seemed like, so different than the rest of Wydown. I mean, it is going to look different for a long time, but they ultimately just want to see what might be along the rest of Wydown. So, and not necessarily differentiate that section that was so hard hit from the rest of the area. So, I mean, my preference would be to go towards option one, which was clearly the favored in the survey, with thoughts that if there is the ability to fundraise for art, by CCF, that there's that ability that, a consultant would be made aware of that so that we can, make sure irrigation doesn't run into a sculpture or something like that.
I think what I heard is a sculpture is one thing, a sculpture park up and down Wydown is another thing. And so I think that's really the difference. The only other thing I would add, and this is getting a little bit into the detail, is that every time we have a cross street, like at University, Dartford, and other places, not to put things in that create traffic hazards and pedestrian hazards because you can't see. So
agree. Yeah.
We need to do that somewhere else.
There's a lot of adjustments we can make, like the closeness of the trees to the curves, which is an issue. There are lots of things we can go in and actually correct with this.
I had one question I forgot to ask. If we go with something like number one, or if we are generally doing that, or regardless of what we're doing, we plant the trees. How long does it take for the trees to look like they did on May 15th? Is that 10 years or 20 years or 50 years? Okay, that's what I thought.
Right.
So I just don't know if people realize that. And so the idea that we're going to have little trees there and then nothing else is going to be really depressing as someone who's going to look at it every day. I don't.
And that's where
And it's hard to know because I don't want to say people didn't know what they were responding to because that's so patronizing.
yeah.
But I don't I don't think that we said that. And I think people think it's more like maybe even 10 years. Like 50 years is crazy.
Yeah.
I won't be here. Like, probably.
Preface that I was the one who answered from the audience. That would be to return back to like condition.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it would feel empty in 20, or maybe even 10.
Yeah.
You're going to start getting some growth and fill in, but to get back to what it was what my response was.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's what I asked. Thank you. And I would just say, I like I definitely would like to get rid of the big bushes that block line of sight, at the intersections. And I would like to see native planting, like we have some areas of it, or of like diverse planting. Even just like at Whiteout and Big Bend, there's planting there. I don't know if those are actually native or anything, but
Yeah.
they
And
don't block line of sight, they don't feel dangerous, and they look nice. So.
Yeah, and I'm wondering too, like Becky, to your point, like thinking about, yes, option one, but then is there a way to, again, talk to a landscape architect as part of our RFP saying, are there places where we can have some native plantings in areas, again, to soften the fact that there will just be these skinny little trees for a long time so that people have a little bit more to look at? Like, I don't know. I mean, that's kind of maybe merging a couple of components, but I'm wondering if there's a way to kind of,
Yeah.
Well, and I wonder when you look at concept two, if you wouldn't mind switching it, that image of that art is so jarring.
I know.
Like, I don't think, you know what I mean? I think that's probably immediately off-putting.
Right.
And I also think, when you look at these plantings, when you think of Whiteout, you do think of like that running path that goes straight down
Right,
the middle.
right.
Well, this image completely eliminates that. So probably immediately people are like, well, I don't want that. I want my running path and I don't want this alien shaped figure also right in the middle of my street.
Yeah.
So I do wonder a little bit, and again, to the point of like, we're going to have these skinny trees. Are people really against these little beds for native plants versus tall prairie grass, things like that? I do think there's like a nuance there that might be missing just from these simple images. Yeah, so that kind of worries
That's why I'm
me a little
wondering if we
bit.
can find some middle ground.
I think we probably can. It is, from a hardscape standpoint, is that something that the council's generally uninterested in? If you remember concept 3, there were various walls and other things that were
Yeah,
on the
I
site. If that's the case and you don't want any hardscape, then we'll get this thing going. And where we do some native plantings, there's some low-lying stuff underneath these trees that may shift the irrigation stuff a little bit, but it's enough for us to go ahead and scope the work at this point in time.
Right.
So I guess more so than just which one of the 3 concepts you want, we could probably move forward with, if you're okay eliminating 3 and going with, let's put the trees back and then let's look at maybe how we can incorporate some natives and maybe save some space for art, then I think we're good.
So you're not, we're not doing you're not eliminating 3 means that we can still do, if CCF wants to sponsor pieces of art here and there, we can do that.
Even doing
By the way,
concept
because
1 doesn't
think
end that
I think the
discussion.
presentation was, and also saying prairie grass, you think of these wild prairies, and even native plantings don't have to be out of control. You can keep them and that's where I think there might have been that confusion that it's different with the culture of the neighborhood. It's what you plant. And also I certainly would hope we consider native grasses and not the long grass that only goes down that far. And I don't know if that changes. If we're doing that concept, you know what irrigation to put in, right? We're not doing a lot of hardscape. So
Yeah, I mean, those are
the same
those are all things, when we're talking about the type of grass that goes in, we're going to look at all that. And, so we're going to
that doesn't impact.
we'll look
the
at whether or not it's a native versus, what it looks like when it's at full growth before it's cut. And then we'll also have to look at things like salt resistance, because it's going to get salt thrown all over it in those medians. So, I mean, all those things are going to factor in.
Yeah, and even putting in, and I'll trust this to you all in the landscape architect, whoever it is, the understory trees, the red buds, things like that will come up quicker and have some color there, because it is going to be 50 to whatever years before people get what they're asking for. But I do think that some of these responses didn't understand.
I like,
Wasn't conveyed enough.
Yeah,
to
I
say what
mean,
we
I
do.
feel like we need to focus less on concept 1, 2, or 3 and more on
Yes.
what it tells us with what David mentioned on like the concerns. So people have the least concerns, and then you add in the other questions at the end, like what else do you want to tell the project team, and what are your general priorities, the first two questions.
Got
So any landscape art, through the process of hiring a designer, they're going to be able to take, these are the common themes: biodiversity, stormwater management. Those were really strong themes that people wanted. They didn't choose prairie maybe, but there's other ways to be sustainable within your plant choices. And so that will all have to come later. Choosing item number one doesn't mean we forget about the amenity benches that people said that they
Right,
wanted, and
yeah.
all the other things, you
Okay.
know? Yeah.
I say I agree with the direction we're going. I would hope that in all this, we still give CCF the opportunity to take advantage of what I thought was a lot of enthusiasm at the last meeting, to be able to play a part. I don't think we should relegate them just to saying, if you want to do a piece of art at the end of one
Yeah.
part of that's fine. Otherwise, don't bother us. I mean, I think there is apparently a lot of groundswell of people who somehow want some involvement in this, and I would hope perhaps this concept one with some pieces of concept two being possible might give CCF some more opportunity to work on this and work with us. So I think that would be very positive.
I agree.
I don't, ditto for everybody. I wasn't obviously here on the 26th, but it looked like the third design, when I originally saw it, looked like a half memorial garden for the tornado, which seemed a little, I mean, to take nothing away from those who suffer with the tornado, it seemed a little bit of an overkill, potentially, no pun intended. So I'm with everybody else. Like, I think if we generally are like, put the trees back, accomplish the benches, figure out a way to do like a good walking path to the extent we can. I know, David, you've got some reservations for not wanting to put a full park and a full sidewalk through all that for all the
We're
reasons
just
we
not
talked
going to
about.
call it out as a path. We're just going to leave space in the middle.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like accommodate those, clearly those 3 or 4 things people are asking for. And if you can put some natives in and whatever, like everybody's talking about, like, I think that works for me. And I think it's an easier way to move it forward.
Great. All right, if there's nothing else, I think we need a motion from.
It's in the drawer.
There.
I move that the Board of Aldermen hold a closed meeting with a closed vote and record as authorized by sections 610.021, 1, 2, and 3, revised statutes of Missouri relating to legal issues, real estate, and/or personnel, negotiation of a contract pursuant to section 610.021, 12 RSMO, and/or proprietary information pursuant to section 610.021, 15, and/or information related to public safety and security measures pursuant to section 610.021, 18, and 19 RSMO.
Second.
Myron, would
You
you
have to
mind?
do a
calling
roll
the
call
roll?
vote.
Yep.
So,
I had to do it for Alderman or Councilman Fader. I had to be as strong as I could.
Buse,
Aye.
Councilmember Patel,
Aye.
Councilmember Fader,
Aye.
Councilmember Humble, Councilmember York,
Aye.
Councilmember Waldman,
Aye.
Mayor McAndrew.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Great. Thank you.
Calendar, so we can. I've started the other, grab the other people.
We can stay here, right?
Yeah.